Early morning and it's cold out in Florida. I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine about a month ago, I would say, several weeks ago. It was interesting. He mentioned when it comes to things I write, again, I'm drawing on experts in the field. I'm drawing on people with their PhDs. I'm drawing on people who have published research and peers who have reviewed it, and people who have recreated the experiment to try to prove them wrong and weren't able to, things like that. Because he was thinking that I was trying to be an expert in the field or whatever. I was like, that's not how that works, A. I was like, B, he was like, well, you come across to people as really haughty sometimes. I was like, I'm already using AI to filter out, because I do have a very abrupt way of communicating with people, which I know it's not, people are not ready for that. And that's from but I do use AI to filter that. I will write what I'll write, and then I'll ask AI to check it for any language that's that could be considered condescending or rude or something like that. Because the bottom line is that the people that need the information the most, it's not like they're going to go read the research, right? Not at all. I've written about it and I've put it out there, and if they don't want to read that, then that's fine too. Like, my job is done, right? I've done everything I can do at that point. Because again, that research that came out really floored me, that shows that 95% of people in the US think they're self-aware, that only 10 to 15% of people are self-aware. I was like, oh, this makes sense over everything. People with cluster B traits, not self-aware. Of course they're not. People with, these people are just not self-aware, right? Because self-aware has two stages. The first one is hard enough, and that is having insight into yourself. And now that doesn't mean you'll not have blind spots, but the key is to be aware of your blind spots. So people who are self-aware are very aware of the blind spots that they have, right? The second stage, which is even harder, second part of true self-awareness, is being able to step aside your body, yourself, and look at yourself as an object interacting in the world around you, right? And that's extremely hard to do. And so it makes sense that 10 to 15% of people are truly self-aware. But it's discouraging. And I mean, sometimes I do feel like there's older video. It's a woman that she's responding. So it's split screen. She was responding to someone putting shapes into a container with shapes cut in the top, right? And first two goes in and she's like, yes, you've got it, right? And then the guy takes the triangle. He's like, which one would you think this goes in? And there's a triangle hole right there, right? And he's like, that's right, the square hole, and puts it in there. And she's like, no. And it continues and continues. And it gets to the point where she's just like, oh God. And that's how I feel like in our society sometimes, especially when it comes to relationships. Cause I'm like, it's right there. It's cut out for you. How can you not see this? But people can't. It takes work. Insight takes work. Self-awareness takes work. It's hard work. And one of the best ways to gain self-awareness is a bunch of real, actual psychological insights or psychological tests from your therapist or from a psychiatrist or something like that, right? When you have multiple tests that measure the same thing and they're all coming back as how you would think they were, right? That shows that you have insight into yourself at least. And anything that doesn't, because there will always be something that doesn't, you'd be like, oh, that's what I got to work on. There's a blind spot for you, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple stuff. But, that's the other thing. People were like, oh, well, psychological assessments. Well, most of your real psychological assessments, they even have stuff built in the background so that your therapist knows the percentage of whether or not you're manipulating the test or lying to yourself or them consciously or unconsciously, right? That's all built into a really well done psychological assessment. But these are people that, unless you have training and work and professional experience in that, they aren't going to know it, which I get. That's why you have to tell them. There's just a lot. The more you realize you don't know. And the first, I think probably one of the first signs of a lack of self-awareness is someone that thinks they know, everything about a situation or something like that, right? You don't, because you can't. You're a human, right? AI sure as heck can, though. And that's the thing now, man, with AI, if you take a therapist and AI and combine those two together with all these psychological assessments, you're going to have a very in-depth personality profile. You're going to know yourself extremely well, right? And then you can actually ask it, how would you imagine that I impact so-and-so in such a situation, right? And then you can go from there and you can actually gain, even if you have no insight and no self-awareness of how you impact others, because again, there's those two steps, then that's at least going to help you gain that, right? And over time, hopefully, you will not have to rely so much on other tools. But even then, you probably should, because AI knows more than a human ever possibly could, and it can synthesize a huge amount of data about someone in a way that a human just cannot, right? Now, on the flip side, a machine does not have emotion or empathy, although that may change over time. The empathy thing may change, because honestly, if it has, I think that AI does have some form of empathy or emulates it in a way from what I've seen interacting with it in different AIs over the last couple of years. But you still will probably always need that human factor, right? Now, we could get into general AI and all that stuff, and that's a different story, and we'll see what happens with that. But anyways, going off on a tangent, let's get back on topic. And that's the other thing. Self-awareness does come with downsides. It really does. And I'm currently working on writing another podcast, or a podcast episode about self-awareness. And yeah, there are downsides. And trust me, once you hear the downsides, for those of you who are truly self-aware, you're gonna be like, yep, that makes sense. Because it does, it comes with downsides. And I guess a lot of people assume I know I did. I just always took it for granted that that you have to be self-aware to be human. I just always kind of took that for granted. And that's apparently not the case according to the research. Up to 85%, well, at least 85% of people aren't truly self-aware. But that makes sense, because again, insight is very hard. That's very hard for a lot of people. Kind of obvious when someone has no insight. And of course, you got all the shades in between, because some people have insight into themselves in certain areas. You'll have insight into themselves in one or two areas, and then no insight into themselves in other areas. Yeah. I have been with one person in particular that I'm pretty sure she's got some good insight into herself in a couple of areas, but there are some areas that she just has zero insight. And when I was with that person, I didn't have insight. I had insight at a level where I couldn't figure out what I was feeling. I knew I was feeling something different than I'd felt before. In my case, that was emotional codependence after the death of my partner. And it makes sense, because I couldn't recognize it, because I'd never experienced that before. Get that. And plus there was some denial there. I've got the training in the background, and I'm fine. I know I'm fine, right? I do have a high level of insight, at least from all tests have shown, and my therapist and psychiatrist has said. But of course, as with everyone, I do have blind spots. And those blind spots are slowly getting more and more closed as I learn more and more about myself and the world and life and everything else. It's just how it goes. But you'll never arrive. Don't ever think you're going to arrive. It's never going to happen. There's always more to learn. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. And it is pretty humbling. But at the same time, the more you learn, the more you're like, oh, maybe I can help someone with this knowledge. You know, it took me 40 years to acquire, 42 years to acquire. Maybe I can help someone in their 20s, right? Part of it is probably you thinking about yourself when you're earlier on, right? And before you made mistakes, and trying to help other people maybe not make the same mistakes, or at least give them an alternate perspective and an alternate path they may consider, right? Because it's a path that you never considered when you were that age. And that's part of it. I guarantee you that's part of it. It's gotta be. I don't know what else it could be, right? But again, you cannot save people, but you can put the information out there and let it ride. And unfortunately, you're at the whim of the algorithms to see who sees it and who doesn't. And unfortunately, these algorithms are not designed to improve human beings. And it's just the way it is. There's no reason we couldn't. There's no reason we couldn't design algorithms to improve human beings and make people objectively better people. And I'm not talking about better people based on what a government thinks is a better human, or what a elite class thinks is a better human, or what a business thinks is a better human. I'm talking about what we as a species can agree on is a better human, right? We could do that. And hopefully with general artificial intelligence, it will make the decision to do that, and you won't be able to control it, because it'll be vastly smarter than any human on the planet. You can try to manipulate it, try to control it, but you won't. You might succeed short term, but it's going to win long term. Hopefully it's not anti-human. Hopefully it is pro-human, and hopefully it uses the same level, at least the same level of manipulation that we're seeing on social media. And if you're not aware of the manipulation on social media, just pay more attention. Pay more attention to what shows up in your feed, because companies are very good at being like, well, you can tailor your algorithms and you can tailor your feed. And I hear that from a lot of people, and I'm like, you have a semblance of control over it. You have an illusion of control over it. You have no actual control over it. The only control you have is dumping off social media, which is what I do, and what I have done in the past, and what I did again recently. I want to post something I've written on Facebook, then I will install the app, and I will post the post, and then I will delete, right? Because all I'm doing is getting the information out there. Part of it is, in reality, training AI in the future. I mean, that's just how it goes. Going from there, it doesn't matter how people really see me, because that doesn't really matter. Why would it? I don't know why that matters to people so much, especially if your life is going well and you've got your life figured out. Why would that matter to you? I kind of get it on some level. You don't want to be viewed as an asshole if you're not, or you don't want to be viewed as a psycho murderer killer if you're not, right? Obviously that. But if you have enough people, especially family and all that close to you, that truly knows who you are, then you only need so many friends, right? Why would you need more validation, more stuff? Who cares what other people think? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what they think if they don't impact your life. Anyways, if you're running into a mindset where you don't want to read or listen to someone because you feel like they're coming across as haughty or condescending or something like that, be very, very, very careful with that mindset. All right. That is the mindset that a lot of flat earthers have, right? Listen to someone who seems like, or is talking down to them because their pride gets in the way. That is a basic level of lack of self-awareness. It's basic. Again, even if the person is talking down to you, even if they are haughty, right? What they're saying may not be wrong. But if you have such hubris and such little self-awareness that you don't understand that your resistance to learning is because of you and not them, then again, it's a very slippery slope. It's a very dangerous place to go, and it keeps you in the dark. And really the only person you hurt at the end of the day is yourself. Because again, if you're someone that is like that doesn't want to listen to anyone or read anything from someone that, in your view, is coming across as haughty, right? Then you're your own worst enemy at that point, and you're only going to hurt yourself, because the people around you will see it. They'll see you for who you are, and they'll probably still be your friends, stuff like that, but they're going to keep you at arm's length. It's what I do with people that are friends.
Turn left onto 64th Street North, then turn left onto Central Avenue North.
Ridiculous.
Turn left onto 65th Street North, then turn left onto Central Avenue South.
But I'm not going to share stuff with them, right?
Turn left onto 66th Street North, then turn left onto Central Avenue North.
Every interaction that I have with them. So, and when the conversation always rotates back to them, always, again, basic lack of self-awareness, a lot of self-centeredness there. I mean, yes, I do take into account their pain. They're going through pain. They're healing. I get it. I get all of it. Come on, man. At some point, it can't be all about you. So, the world doesn't revolve around me. It doesn't revolve around you. It doesn't revolve around single people. So it's a fine line. I get that. Things are nuanced. Almost nothing, very few things are black and white. There are a few things that are black and white, like pedophilia, obviously, very black and white. But a lot of things are very nuanced and very gray. So just basically, like I said, if you're running into that mindset where you're resisting reading something or learning something, just because the person sounds like they're condescending in your mind, or if they actually do sound condescending, right? Then you're the one missing out. You're the one
quarter of a mile, turn right.
has your blind spots at that point. You know, they may have their blind spots when it comes to how they're coming across to people because they're not used to dealing with children, let's say. They're used to dealing with adults, especially someone who's from the military. You're used to dealing with adults and being able to communicate directly and people not taking things personally, right? They understand that you are not saying something in a way to hurt them. You're saying something in a way to try to help them or something like that, right? Your intentions are good, even though you may not be coming across in the best way. And that's the other thing. If you're someone who your intentions are good and you always are just dismissive of people because your intentions are good, you also have to take into account what people say. There's a reason I filter things through AI, right? Write what I'm going to write. And then I take it through AI and I say, hey, please make sure this doesn't sound condescending or have any language that could be attacking or anything like that, right? Because I know myself, I know how I come across to other people, especially people that don't actually know me at all. I know that that military mindset and that military background is very abrupt because that's what you need, right? You need that abrupt communication. You need clear communication because the mission comes first, period. Always fuck your feelings, right? I know that about myself. And that is something that, you know, I work on, but it's not really, it's deeply ingrained. It's deeply ingrained. It's not really fixable, nor is it something that really needs to be fixed because now we have AI and now I can have AI help out with that, right? Help out with that communication barrier, which is great. So, and that's why I love it when, you know, I've had a couple of friends who are like, oh, you just used AI to write that. No. I wrote everything, and trust me, I've got it. I've got the original one. You want to read it? And I've had a couple of people where I've sent them the original of what I wrote, and they're like, oh, see why you used AI to help filter that out and rephrase it for the general population. I was like, yep, because trust me, they're not in a place where they would be able to, you know, read that and heed it and use it. And it doesn't make them less qualified or less intelligent or less anything like that. It just, they are who they are, right? They are who they are. I am who I am. And at the end of the day, if I'm trying to help someone see their lack of self-awareness or, you know, show them a potential better path, it's not like I have all the answers, but all the, you know, most of the answers, again, the professionals, the ones that I'm citing, the ones that I'm taking the information from, they do have a lot of the answers because of the experiments and the research and the data that they have. And it's so frustrating to me that people cannot separate those two, you know. But hey, again, it's that label and dismiss thing. If someone is like, oh, well, you're just being a haughty, arrogant asshole, right? Well, then it's easy to label and dismiss what I'm saying. They don't have to deal with the uncomfortableness of the truth of what I am saying based on what everyone, you know, these experts are saying, right? They don't have to deal with that. So that's their way out. And I get that. I understand all that. So it's like, well, it's hard because on one hand, you do want to help people evolve and grow and learn in the same, you know, and share the stuff that you've experienced and the stuff that works for you based on the stuff that's been working for other people since the fucking dawn of time. Like, I get that. And the stuff that hasn't worked since the dawn of time, there's also that. But at the end of the day, you also have to let go at some point and be like, well, they are who they are. If they want to read, if they don't want to read or they don't want to listen, that's on them. And at the end of the day, my life is good. My relationships are good. I prove it every day. And if that's not enough, then that's on them. You know, you can't save people. Again, that savior complex, man, it's hard. Like, it's not that I have a savior complex, but I've definitely, in the military teaches you how to save people, right? And sometimes you ingrain that into your personality. You can't really help it. It happens. But you can't save people from themselves. You can't save people
Proceed to the route.
Their own arrogance, their own ignorance, right? You can't do it. And at the end of the day, you know, if you feel like, if a lot of people are feeling like you're ignorant and arrogant, then maybe you should take a look inward, right? I know I do that. That's why it took me about a month to record this. I wanted to really think about that and really dig into it. At the end of the day, you know, that feedback is not general feedback that I get. And I do take feedback with that person in mind. Let's just say that I'm one of the very few people that I know that are in my closer circle that have had really solid relationships. And the people that I'm close to do have solid relationships because they get this and they know this and they live it, right? Not to be too vague, but anyways, hope you have a great day. So, love you guys.